Gather round, children. It is time for M to tell you the story, rant about the story, The Diamond as Big as the Ritz by F. Scott Fitzgerald. It's M and Crowley here on my lap, which I don't think you can see, but if things go sideways, more than just me getting worked up while I recount this story, it's because Crowley is here using his demon influence. All right. The Diamond as Big as the Ritz. I was curious about this story. Well, I read it, I think, back in high school. I had like this vague memory of it, but I've heard the Jimmy Buffett song based on it many times, and I was like, I want to refresh my memory on this story. And then I found an old F. Scott Fitzgerald collection on our bookshelf, and the first story in it is The Diamond as Big as the Ritz, and I thought, I'm just gonna read this really quick. It's only 35 pages long, first published in 1922. And, okay, so I'm gonna tell you the story. I'm gonna paraphrase it, obviously. And, yeah. John Unger is, he's from Hades, a town on the Mississippi River. That's all we know about its location. I'm sure it's symbolic that he's from Hades. There's something about, like, the motto on the gate or something. I don't think the story actually ever tells us what it is. I think maybe, I don't know. It doesn't matter. John's going away to boarding school, basically. He's going away to, like, prep school. He's going to St. Midas's, because of course he is. It's in New England somewhere, and it is not just a good, it's like the best prep school in the world. Like, everything in this story is superlative. It's the most, the best, the whatever. Biggest, greatest. Ugh. Okay? There's no moderation in this story, and I know that's part of the point of the story, but we'll get there. John goes to St. Midas's. He spends a couple years there, and then this new kid shows up. His name is Percy Washington. So at this point, John leaves when he's 16. So at this point, he's 18. I assume Percy is of an age. Percy doesn't, like, get close to other students except for John. He seems to kind of, like John, be drawn to John, or John's drawn to him. I don't know. They form a friendship. This all happens in like 3 paragraphs. Percy shows up, doesn't talk to other people except John, invites John for a summer at his family home in Montana. They go, now John has spent other holidays with other rich people. He's not thinking a whole lot about it, but they get on a train from wherever they are in New England, again, unspecified. I would assume upstate New York. I don't know. And they go to Montana, to a town called Fish, Montana. Again, pretty sure this is symbolic. I'm thinking it's a Christian thing, because he talks about how there are only 12 people who live in the town of Fish, and they're kind of dirty, old, grubby type people. And I'm like, okay, so are these like the 12 disciples? Because the fish symbol for Christianity. Anyway, whatever. Doesn't matter, because they don't stay in Fish. There's a buggy waiting for them, and they get in the buggy. It's driven by what is persistently in this story called, Negroes, but we'll say black person, and a black servant who drives them outside of Fish to where a car is waiting, a very fancy car. They get in, it's got like jewels in the upholstery, because on the train, by the way, Percy has told John, by the way, my dad is like the richest man in the world. And John's kind of like, okay, cool, well, I've stayed with a lot of rich people, and like, Percy's like, no, this is another level, you don't get it. My dad is insanely rich. And sure enough, when they get in this car, and it's got like precious stones sewn into the upholstery, which I'm just thinking, that's not comfortable to ride on. Who wants to sit on a car seat that's got like whatever. But John goes all Archie comics. All he keeps saying is like, geez, what a car. I'm just like, okay, John, you're stupid. John has already admitted, well, I like rich people. You know, the richer they are, the more I like them. Like, he's got this kind of avaricious nature, this, interest in, like, climbing in society. Whatever. Nobody in this story is very likable, by the way. I don't know if that's supposed to be part of the story, but they get in the car, and then Percy's like, it's going to be an hour and a half, and they have to go through this mountain pass. It's really hard to get there. They finally get to where the Washingtons live, and it's this fairy tale-esque castle nestled in some pine trees up against this big mountain. And it turns out that the mountain itself is just kind of a crust for a giant diamond. One whole massive diamond, a diamond as big as the Ritz. Percy, I think at one point explains that it's as big as the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. I guess he means the one in New York. Maybe there was only the one back then. I don't know. There's Ritz-Carltons everywhere now, so who knows. But the castle, the mansion. I say castle because he talks about the turrets and all this stuff. It has rooms that are just completely made of diamond, and like, I don't know. It sounds insane. It's very fairy tale-esque, and I don't know. I mean, again, I assume all of this is intentional to some degree. But so John's staying with Percy's mother, father, and he has two sisters, Jasmine and Kismine. She's the youngest, Kismine. Now, I assume since Jasmine is Jasmine and Kismine is pronounced in a similar way, maybe it's Kismine. I don't know. I've never heard this name. This is a made-up name as far as I know, as far as I'm concerned. But it doesn't matter. John falls in love with Kismine. Kissy. We'll call her Kissy. He falls in love with Kissy. She's, never seen outside boys before because this house and this property is so incredibly well guarded. They have anti-aircraft guns because the dad, I think his name is Braddock Washington, is absolutely terrified of planes flying over and seeing their house and all this stuff. Like, I guess when he had like architects and stuff come in, they had to stay, Braddock Washington has this oubliette kind of thing. It's the way it's described is like it's a big hole in the ground with a grate over it and like slick glass like walls, and he's got a bunch of aviators in there that he's holding captive, and he's trying to negotiate with them. He's like, look, I'll have your families kidnapped and brought here, and you can live here the rest of your lives. I guess he's feeding them and everything. He's not starving them out or anything. So, it's not like oubliette in that he's literally thrown them in there to forget them. But they're just like, let us out. We promise we won't tell. And he's like, haha, I'm not going to fall for that. It turns out he had let one of them out. He had let a man out to tutor the daughters in Italian, and the Italian tutor ran away. So, he's like, I don't trust any of you now. He sent his agents out to try and find this Italian tutor, but it's not clear that he's been found. Some of them say, well, we shot a man who fit the description, but we're not sure if it's the guy. They just kind of want the bounty money, I guess. Meanwhile, yes, this is the questionable part. The whole backstory is that the Washington family, who they say are direct descendants of George Washington, which is really impressive considering George Washington had no children. But I'm like, are they lying, or did F. Scott Fitzgerald not know his history? I don't know. Anyway, they, the family had moved out there during or just before the Civil War-ish and found the diamonds, and they had their slaves with them, and so they lied to the slaves and said that the Civil War had ended in the favor of the Confederacy, and they say that the slaves were happy. They were happy that they got to stay with the family and not be free. I don't know. All very questionable, but again, part of it is like, well, we're supposed to know this guy's terrible and his family is terrible and greed is terrible. That's the whole point of the story. But like, he's basically just kept these slaves, but he's built them this beautiful Gothic, like slave quarters area. It's very nice, except here's a detail. They had bathtubs, and he had to tell the slaves to quit taking baths because they were all catching cold and dying. And he says something along the lines of, yeah, some races they're only good for drinking water. They can't be in water. They should only drink it. And I was like, what? What? Okay, so anyway, and again, the Washingtons are terrible, and also it was 1922 when this was written, so there are a lot of things wrong with this, but just like, nah. Okay, so John's in love with Kissy over here, but they're keeping it hidden. They've got these aviators in a pit, but one of them's gotten away. John's living the good life, really enjoying it. Till he finds out Kissy, she's not too bright. Oh, there you go. Crowley's gonna help. He's behind the camera now, and that is why things are shaky. It's not an earthquake. It is a cat. Sorry. Cat is in fact still here. He refuses to leave, and if I threw him out, he'd just howl at the door. So we're just gonna make the best of it. In any case, Kissy, kind of a dimwit, lets slip that that her sister Jasmine has had friends come stay, and then towards the end of the stay, they always poison them because they can't allow them to go back home and reveal the truth about the Washington family, like, estate and their big mountain diamond thing. So John is understandably upset. He's like, wait, you're just gonna poison me? She's like, oh, I shouldn't have told you because we were having such a nice time, and we always want, our guests to have like a really, really good time and not spoil it. And then, they're poisoned and they don't know any different. And we just tell their families that they died in like Butte from like pneumonia. I can't remember if it was pneumonia, but like we just tell them they got sick and died in Butte. Okay. So there's a lot of things about baths in this too, because I remember I tried to picture the way he described it, but I really had a difficult time because in the mornings, John's in bed and one of the slaves, I'm just going to call them slaves, because that's really what they are, will come in and undress him and then pull a lever or hit some kind of trigger button thing, and the bed will tilt and roll John down into a bathtub, that's like a sunken bath. It's in the floor and stuff, and there's like, liquid soap that shoots out of little walruses from the corners of the tub. I'm very, like, a fixation on these bath thing and cleanliness and stuff, because, like, the night that John's like, okay, I need to get out of here, he thinks they're coming to poison him, but then airplanes start flying over, because what we can assume is that the Italian tutor guy who had been with the aviators in the pit finally, like, reached civilization and alerted people to what was going on. Now the anti-aircraft guns are going, and the the people coming to poison John are redirected to help, defend the Washington estate. And yeah. So John grabs Kissy and Jasmine, and they leave the house. They go up a side of the mountain or something and hide out for the night while there's gunfire and stuff. And in the morning, he sees Braddock Washington at the top of the mountain with a big chunk of diamond, and Braddock is trying to bargain with God. He's like, bring my people back, make everything like it was yesterday before, the attack and everything. And, I'm like, what does God want with your stupid diamond? Like, he could take the whole friggin' mountain. Like, what do you think you're doing? But in any case, Braddock throughout the story has this whole bargaining kind of thing, because he tries to do it with the aviators too. He's got kind of this idea that he's just a really good negotiator. There's something very timely about this story, I have to say. These people are like practically survivalists up in in this Montana estate. They've got their anti-aircraft guns. They're entrenched. They're fighting the government. He doesn't pay his taxes. There's something to be said. And then of course he thinks he's this great negotiator, and he can negotiate even just with God. And, yeah, it doesn't work. Spoiler. I'm telling you the story. It's, the whole thing's a spoiler. But, so, then, at this point I'm skimming, because this story is ridiculous and terrible. And I guess Mrs. Washington, Percy, and Mr. Washington at some point fall into the hole where the aviators were, or into some other pit. I don't know. But they're gone. And they're incendiary. They're burned up, because Kissy says something about how the mountain is wired, and then I guess it doesn't blow up. I don't think. Because they're there and they don't die, but the house falls into the lake, and I don't know. It's stupid. The whole thing is stupid. And John and Jasmine and Kissy start walking towards civilization. Jasmine somehow had packed a picnic basket of food, and Kissy was supposed to have brought some jewels from the house, but she's, I opened the wrong drawer. These are just rhinestones that one of our guests left, because I thought rhinestones were so much more interesting than diamonds. I saw diamonds all the time, so these are just rhinestones. Ha 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 ha. And I get that there's something to be said for, okay, well, familiarity breeds contempt, but also walk back to the ruins of that house and grab some goddamn jewelry, because you're gonna need it. You're gonna need the money. And, I don't think it's all just gone. Just go. But he's like, no, Jasmine's like, oh, you know what? I can do laundry. I'll take in laundry for a living and support us all, or something like that. What? Because John's like, I guess we're going back to Hades. And I think one of the daughters says something like, well, Dad, will our father be there? And he's just like, no, you're thinking of somewhere else, or something like what? And then they just lay down and go to sleep. Okay. Sleeping is a thing too. John keeps falling asleep, in this story. And I don't know if there's it's a willful, lack of consciousness on the part of somebody who doesn't want to face the realities of grief. You could read a lot of stuff into this story. There's a lot there, but it's so bad and stupid, it's almost not worth it. It's it lacks any subtlety. And I don't know, maybe it's just back then they didn't write with any, then again, there are plenty of books these days. They're like over the top and lack subtlety. So maybe it's just not my thing. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. I still like the Jimmy Buffett song. But this was a stupid story. It was stupid. And I don't recommend it. And it was only, like I said, it was only like 35 pages long. When I looked it up online, people call it a novella. And I don't know how many words it is. Maybe my book just has really tiny print. And it's actually much longer than it seemed. It felt long in that it was terrible. Like, you get no backstory. You get, like, the bare bones of John and John going away to school. I'm like, you could actually have made something of this and made it more interesting and better and longer, honestly. I mean, this, it could be a novel. Maybe somebody's novelized this. It's got to be public domain by now. But, like, as it stands, as it is, it's not good. It's not good. So there. Now you know the story. I've made you suffer the story that I had to suffer. I didn't have to suffer. I mean, I could have just stopped reading. I didn't have to read it. But, like, it's only 35 pages. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stick this out because I want to know what happens here. But nobody's, like, none of these characters are good people. And I mean, again, maybe that's part of the point. I don't know. I've ranted too long already. I needed to get it out of my system. And it's not even still completely out of my system. I'm going to be mad about this for a while. But at least until, then I'm reading The Other Half by Charlotte Vassell, something like that. I don't know. I don't even know if that's how she pronounces it. She may say Villers, for all I know. VA is French, but I think she's British. Anyway, I'm reading that, and I'm not loving it, but I'm definitely not mad about it in the way I'm mad about The Diamond as Big as the Ritz. So there's that. Like, it might benefit from the proximity bias a little bit. I might actually look a little more favorably on The Other Half, just because I paused to read this story and got so mad. So, there's always that. Anyway, now that you've listened to me rant about F. Scott Fitzgerald, I remember liking The Great Gatsby, but now I'm thinking if I went and reread that, maybe I'd be mad about that too. That's very possible. I've just, I don't know. Things are different when you're in high school than when you're, an adult with 3 kids of your own or whatever. Whatever. Okay. I'll be back either to talk about things we continue to watch or the next book I've read, whichever comes first. In the meantime, and until next time, take care.